The stars twinkled like scattered diamonds against the vast darkness of space. The massive Imperial flagship Dominator moved silently through the void, its sleek silver hull gleaming under the light of distant suns. On the command bridge, Admiral Toll stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the control panels. "How much longer until we reach this Earth?" he asked, the word sounding strange on his forked tongue. 3 hours. "Admiral," replied Commander Mox, tapping on a transparent screen. "Our scout ships have already entered their solar system and report minimal defensive capabilities." Admiral Toole nodded, his yellow eyes narrowing. The Emperor had sent him on many first contact missions before, but this one seemed hardly worth his time. These humans had barely managed to reach their own moon. Their technology was primitive, and their planet was divided into competing factions. They would be easy to bring into the Empire. "Prepare the standard intimidation formation," ordered Admiral Toole. "Let's show these primitives what real space power looks like." Behind the Dominator, 20 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation. Each one could destroy an entire city from orbit. The display of force had worked on hundreds of other species. It would work on humans too. As the Imperial fleet approached Earth, they detected unusual activity. The humans had noticed them coming and were scrambling their own vessels. Tiny, clumsy things powered by chemical rockets. Admiral Toole almost laughed at the sight of them on the view screen. "Look at those primitive ships," sneered Commander Mox. "They use combustion engines. How have they not blown themselves up yet?" "Remember, Commander, we were all primitive once," said Admiral Toole, though he couldn't hide his smile. "Open communication channels. Let's see if they can at least talk properly." The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It belonged to General Tom, head of Earth's Unified Defense Command. His expression was calm, which surprised Admiral Toole. Most species showed fear when facing the Imperial fleet for the first time. "Unknown vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Admiral Toole stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full height, nearly 8 feet tall. "I am Admiral Toole of the Galactic Empire. Your planet has been noticed by Emperor Drac, ruler of 1,000 worlds. We come to offer you the opportunity to join our glorious empire as a protected territory." General Tom's expression didn't change. "And if we're not interested in this opportunity?" The question took Admiral Toole by surprise. Most species begged to join the Empire after seeing their fleet. "Then we would be forced to demonstrate the benefits of our protection," said Admiral Toole, his voice growing colder. "Your world faces many dangers in this galaxy. It would be unfortunate if you had to face them alone." General Tom nodded slowly. "I see. Let me be clear, Admiral. Earth is not interested in becoming anyone's protected territory. We welcome peaceful relations with other civilizations, but we will defend our independence." Commander Mox couldn't contain his laughter. "Defend? With what? Those metal cans you call spaceships?" Admiral Tolle raised a hand to silence his subordinate, but the damage was done. General Tom's eyes hardened. "We may not have your advanced technology, Admiral, but humans have something your empire seems to lack: respect for others. I suggest you reconsider your approach." The communication ended abruptly, leaving Admiral Toole staring at a blank screen. For a moment he felt a flicker of unease. Most species submitted immediately. These humans were either very brave or very foolish. "They cut the transmission," exclaimed Commander Mox. "The primitives dare to disrespect the Empire." "Send a scout. Ship closer to their orbital stations," ordered Admiral Toole. "Let's see how they react to a closer look at our technology." One of the smaller Imperial ships broke formation and moved toward Earth's orbit, where several space stations and satellites floated. As it approached, sensors detected increased activity from Earth. "Admiral, the humans are launching something," reported the sensor officer. "It appears to be a small vessel of some kind. Primitive design, but moving at surprising speed." On the view screen, they watched as a human ship approached their scout vessel. It was small, perhaps 1/10 the size of the Imperial Scout with a boxy design that looked hastily assembled. Are they trying to attack us? Commander Mox laughed. With that? Admiral Toole wasn't laughing. Something felt wrong. Order our scout ship to maintain distance. But it was too late. The human vessel suddenly accelerated, moving with unexpected agility. It approached the Imperial scout ship and seemed to attach itself to its hull. What are they doing? Admiral Toole demanded. Before anyone could answer, a bright flash appeared on the screen. When it cleared, the Imperial scout ship was drifting, its systems offline. The human vessel had detached and was quickly retreating back to Earth. Impossible, shouted Commander Mox. They disabled an Imperial ship? How? Admiral Toole stared at the screen in disbelief. Analysis. What happened to our scout ship? It appears to be an electromagnetic pulse weapon, Admiral, said the science officer after a moment. Simple technology but effectively deployed. Our scout ship systems are rebooting now. Admiral Toole felt a cold feeling in his stomach. No newly discovered species had ever damaged an Imperial vessel during first contact. It was unheard of. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth again, said the communications officer. General Tom's face appeared on screen once more. That was a warning shot, Admiral. We prefer peace, but we are prepared for the alternative. You have 24 hours to leave our solar system. As the transmission ended, Admiral Toole stood in stunned silence. These humans were not like other species. They showed no fear. They had actually fought back and succeeded. Recall all ships, he finally ordered. We need to report this to the Emperor. These humans are unusual. As the Imperial fleet retreated to a safe distance, Admiral Toole gazed at the blue planet on the view screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt uncertain. The Empire had encountered thousands of species, but none quite like these humans. This isn't over, he murmured. The Empire doesn't tolerate resistance. We'll be back, humans, and next time we won't underestimate you. Little did he know that the Empire's worst nightmare was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the embarrassing first contact with Earth. The Imperial Council chambers buzzed with tension as Admiral Toole stood before Emperor Drac, explaining what had happened for the 20th time. And you're certain their technology was primitive? Asked Emperor Drac, his massive form looming on the throne. His skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with his irritation. Yes, Emperor. They still use combustion engines and chemical rockets. Their disabling of our scout ship was likely a lucky strike, Admiral Toole replied, trying to sound confident despite his doubt. Emperor Drac's eyes narrowed. Then we shall send a proper greeting force. Show these humans what it means to defy the Empire. Before Admiral Toole could respond, a junior officer burst into the chambers, breaking all protocol. Forgive me, Emperor, he gasped, dropping to his knees. Long-range sensors have detected something entering our controlled space in Sector 7. What is it? Demanded the Emperor. It appears to be a human ship, sir. A wave of laughter rippled through the council chamber. One small human ship was hardly a threat. And this required interrupting our council? Emperor Drac asked coldly. The officer trembled. Sir, the ship is massive, nearly the size of our largest battlecruiser, and the energy reading, they're off the charts. The laughter died instantly. Impossible, whispered Admiral Toole. They were just figuring out how to reach their own moon. Emperor Drac rose from his throne. Captain Ven. A tall, slender figure stepped forward from the shadows. Captain Ven was known throughout the Empire as their best strategist, with metallic implants covering half his face, enhancing his already impressive mental abilities. Take your battle group to intercept this human vessel. Determine if it truly is from Earth, and if so, how they've advanced so quickly. Captain Ven bowed low. As you command, Emperor. The Imperial battle group dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of Sector 7. 5 sleek warships arranged themselves in attack formation, their weapons systems powered and ready. On the bridge of the lead ship, Invincible, Captain Ven studied the view screen with his organic eye, while his mechanical one processed data at incredible speeds. There it is. his second-in-command said quietly, pointing to a blip on the sensor display. Captain Venn zoomed in on the object. What he saw made his breath catch. The ship was unlike anything in the Imperial database. It was massive, nearly as large as their largest battlecruiser, but with a completely different design philosophy. Where Imperial ships were sleek and elegant, this vessel was blocky and overbuilt, with thick armor plating and what appeared to be multiple redundant systems. "That can't be a human warship," Captain Venn said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is that possible?" "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "On screen," ordered Captain Venn, straightening his uniform. The view screen flickered and a human face appeared. He wore a simple dark uniform with minimal decorations. "This is Captain Jack of the Earth vessel Defiance. We come in peace and request diplomatic talks with the Galactic Empire." Captain Venn studied the human carefully. "This is Captain Venn of the Imperial Defense Fleet. Your ship's capabilities exceed our intelligence reports on human technology. Explain yourselves." Captain Jack smiled slightly. "Captain, we've been watching the stars for centuries. Did you really think we would announce all our capabilities to the first aliens who arrived? You're claiming this level of advancement was hidden when we first contacted Earth?" Captain Venn asked incredulously. "Not hidden, just not displayed. Your Admiral tool didn't exactly make a good first impression." Captain Venn's tactical mind raced. If the humans had deceived them about their technology, what else had they hidden? "Sir," his science officer whispered urgently, "our scans show their power source is some form of controlled fusion, but it's using principles our scientists believed were theoretically impossible to stabilize." Captain Venn kept his face neutral. "Captain Jack, the Emperor has authorized me to conduct preliminary negotiations. Would you be willing to come aboard my vessel?" "I'd be delighted," replied Captain Jack, "but I must insist on bringing a small security detail for diplomatic purposes." "Of course, we'll prepare a shuttle bay for your arrival." As the communication ended, Captain Venn turned to his crew. "Full analysis of that ship. I want to know everything about it before they arrive, and alert the Emperor immediately." An hour later, Captain Jack stood in the grand meeting room of the Invincible, accompanied by 3 human officers. They showed no signs of being impressed by the Imperial technology surrounding them. "Your ship is quite remarkable," Captain Venio began, gesturing for the humans to sit. "Our scientists are particularly interested in your power source." Captain Jack nodded. "Simple fusion, really. We've been working on it for centuries." "But the containment field you're using shouldn't be possible," said the Imperial science officer. "The energy required to maintain such stability would exceed the output." One of the human officers, a woman with short gray hair, smiled. "That would be true if you approached the problem from an energy containment perspective. We approached it from a material science angle instead." "Material science?" repeated Captain Venn, confused. "While you were developing energy fields to contain plasma, we were developing materials that could physically hold it," Captain Jack explained. "Different path, same destination." Captain Venn felt a chill run down his spine. The Empire had always focused on energy manipulation, considering physical materials to be a primitive approach. Had they been wrong all this time? "And your weapons systems?" he asked carefully. "We prefer not to discuss those unless necessary," replied Captain Jack. "We're here to talk peace, not war." Captain Venn nodded slowly. "Of course. However, you must understand our concern. 3 months ago, you were barely able to reach your own moon. Now you arrive in a warship rivaling our best vessels. As I said, Captain, we've been watching the stars for a long time. We knew we weren't alone, so we prepared. When your Admiral Tool arrived making threats, we simply accelerated our timeline." Before Captain Venn could respond, his communication device buzzed. "Excuse me," he said, stepping away to take the message. "Sir," came the urgent voice of his sensor officer, "we've detected energy signatures from the human vessel. They've activated some sort of weapon system." Captain Venn glanced back at the humans who were calmly waiting, showing no signs of hostility. "Are they targeting us?" he whispered. "No, sir. But the energy output it's off the charts. Whatever they're powering up could potentially disable our entire battle group." Captain Venn returned to the table, his face carefully composed. Captain Jack, our sensors indicate your ship has activated weapon systems. Care to explain? Captain Jack's expression didn't change. Just a precaution, Captain. Your Emperor has dispatched another fleet to our location. They'll arrive within the hour. We wanted to be prepared, just in case diplomacy fails. Captain Venn felt his heart racing. How had the humans detected the reinforcements? Even more concerning, how had they built such advanced sensor technology? I assure you there's no need for weapons, Captain Venn said, trying to keep his voice steady. The Emperor merely wishes to ensure these talks proceed smoothly. Of course, said Captain Jack with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then we'll continue our discussion. Now, about establishing formal diplomatic relations between Earth and your empire. As the talks proceeded, Captain Venn couldn't shake the feeling that everything the Empire thought they knew about humans was wrong, and that realization terrified him more than any weapon ever could. The Grand Imperial Council chamber fell silent as Captain Venn finished his report about the human vessel, Defiance. Even Emperor Drac seemed shaken, his luminescent patterns pulsing erratically across his massive form. You mean to tell me, the Emperor said slowly, that these humans have achieved controlled fusion using material containment rather than energy fields? Captain Venn nodded, his cybernetic eye whirring as it projected data onto the large screen behind him. Yes, Emperor, and that's just the beginning. Their approach to technology is fundamentally different from ours. Admiral Toole stepped forward, his scales now a pale yellow from stress. Different how? Where we pursue elegant solutions with minimal components, they build redundant, over-engineered systems, Captain Venn explained. Where we refine and perfect, they iterate and improvise. Most importantly, they've developed along technological paths we abandoned centuries ago, seeing them as inefficient. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. The Empire had always prided itself on elegant technological solutions, systems that worked with perfect efficiency and minimal waste. The idea that a species would deliberately choose a different path seemed almost offensive. Emperor Drac raised a hand for silence. Bring in the human delegates. I wish to hear this from them directly. Minutes later, Captain Jack and his team were escorted into the chamber. They showed no signs of intimidation despite being surrounded by the Empire's most powerful leaders. Captain Jack of Earth, Emperor Drac's voice boomed across the chamber. Your ship has caused quite a stir among my advisors. We find ourselves curious about human technology. Captain Jack bowed slightly. We are happy to explain, Emperor, though I should warn you that I'm a soldier, not a scientist. Dr. Anna here would be better suited to answer technical questions. The woman with gray hair stepped forward. Perhaps I can clarify some misconceptions. When we detected your scout ships approaching our solar system months ago, we realized we needed to accelerate our plans. You knew we were coming? Admiral Toole asked, surprised. Dr. Anna smiled. We've been watching the stars for centuries. Our telescopes detected your ships long before you entered our system. Impossible, snorted the Imperial Science Advisor. Your technology couldn't possibly. Actually, Dr. Anna interrupted politely. While our space travel technology was indeed limited, our observational equipment is quite advanced. We've been studying the universe from our planet's surface for hundreds of years. She tapped a small device on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed what appeared to be the internal workings of the Defiance. The fundamental difference in our approach is this, she explained. Your empire builds ships like fine jewelry, precise, elegant, minimal. We build ships like fortresses, redundant, robust, over-engineered. The hologram zoomed in on the ship's power core. Take our fusion reactor. You contain plasma with energy fields, which is elegant but vulnerable to power fluctuations. We contain it with layers of specially developed materials that can physically withstand the heat and pressure. But that's so inefficient, protested the science advisor. Inefficient but reliable, countered Dr. Anna. If your energy field fails, your reactor fails. If one of our containment layers fails, we have 5 more backups. Emperor Drac leaned forward on his throne, genuinely intrigued. And this philosophy extends to all your systems? Yes, said Captain Jack, stepping forward again. Our ships don't have a single computer core. They have dozens of smaller ones that can take over, if others fail. We don't have one power distribution system. We have 6 separate grids. It's not elegant, but it's hard to kill. The hologram shifted to show the ship's weapon systems, and the Imperial Council grew noticeably tense. As for our weapons, Captain, Jack continued, we focused on kinetic energy rather than energy beams. Simple physics, mass times acceleration. We fire small projectiles at nearly the speed of light. Primitive ballistic weapons? Scoffed Commander Mox, who had been silent until now. Primitive concept, advanced execution, corrected Captain Jack. Each projectile masses only a few grams, but at near light speed it carries enough energy to disable a ship of your size. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Such weapons would bypass the Empire's sophisticated energy shields, which were designed to deflect energy weapons, not physical objects. Why reveal all this to us? Emperor Drac finally asked. Surely this gives away your tactical advantages. Captain, Jack's expression grew serious. Because we want peace, not war. Earth has no interest in conquest. We built the Defiance as a deterrent, not an invasion force. Dr. Anna added, we've been watching your empire expand for decades. We saw how you absorbed other species, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. We decided it would be better to negotiate from a position of strength. Emperor Drac's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly, a sign of deep thought among his species. And if we declined peaceful relations, if we decided your technology posed a threat to the Empire? Captain Jack's voice remained calm, but his eyes hardened. The Defiance isn't our only ship, Emperor. It's just the first one we decided to reveal. The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. If humans had been hiding this level of technological advancement, what else were they concealing? Admiral Toole's face showed shock. You're bluffing. Our scans detected no other ships of this capability in your system. Because they're not in our system, replied Captain Jack. After your first visit, we dispersed our fleet. Standard human military protocol. Never keep all your assets in one place. A junior officer rushed into the chamber, breaking protocol for the second time that day. He whispered urgently to Admiral Toole, whose scales paled even further. Emperor, Admiral Toole said shakily, long-range sensors have detected energy signatures, similar to the Defiance's, in 7 different sectors of Imperial space. Emperor Drac stood abruptly, towering over everyone in the room. Is this an invasion, Captain Jack? No, Emperor. It's insurance. Captain Jack replied calmly. Those ships have orders to maintain position unless Earth is attacked. They're observers only. For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Drac found himself truly uncertain. These humans had not only developed technology along paths the Empire had abandoned, but they had also deployed it throughout Imperial space without detection. I believe, the Emperor said slowly, that we should continue these diplomatic talks in a more formal setting. Perhaps a treaty between our peoples would be beneficial. Captain Jack nodded. That's why we came, Emperor. Not to threaten, but to establish understanding. Humanity wishes to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects. As the humans were escorted to the diplomatic wing of the Imperial Palace, Admiral Toole approached Emperor Drac. They can't possibly have the resources to build a fleet of ships like the Defiance, he whispered. It must be a bluff. Emperor Drac watched the humans leave, noting their confident stride and relaxed posture. Are you willing to risk the Empire to find out, Admiral? Because I am not. These humans are not primitive. They're dangerously innovative. And I begin to fear we've awakened something we don't fully understand. Outside the chamber, Captain Jack and Dr. Anna exchanged a subtle glance. Their gamble had worked. The Empire would negotiate now, not knowing that the Defiance was indeed their only completed warship. The other ships were merely engine cores, broadcasting similar signatures, a trick Earth's military had used for centuries to appear stronger than they were. But if all went well, they wouldn't need that trick much longer. The real fleet was already under construction back home. The Imperial War Room hummed with activity as Admiral Toole paced nervously before the massive holographic display. It showed the Defiance holding position at the edge of the Krell system, apparently waiting. The diplomatic talks have failed, Emperor Drac announced as he entered the room, his luminescent patterns pulsing deep red, a sign of anger. The humans refuse to submit to Imperial oversight. They demand recognition as an independent power. Admiral Toole bowed low. What are your orders, Emperor? Deploy the Imperial Armada. Show these upstart humans the true might of our empire. Emperor Drac commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. 20 battlecruisers should be enough to deal with one ship, regardless of its unusual technology. Captain Venn, who stood quietly in the corner, stepped forward. With respect, Emperor, I believe we should reconsider. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we don't fully understand. Emperor Drac turned his massive head toward Captain Venn. Are you suggesting we allow a primitive species to dictate terms to the Empire? That we show weakness? Not weakness, caution, Captain Venn replied, at least until we better understand their technology. Your caution is noted, Captain, the Emperor said coldly. But the decision is made. Admiral Toole will lead the attack personally. As the Emperor left, Captain Venn approached Admiral Toole. Be careful, Admiral. Don't underestimate them again. Admiral Toole's scales flickered with annoyance. One ship against 20 of our finest battlecruisers? The odds favor us, Captain, regardless of their technology. Hours later, Admiral Toole stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Conqueror, leading the most impressive battle formation the Empire had assembled in decades. 20 sleek, deadly battlecruisers arranged in perfect attack formation, their energy weapons charged in shields at maximum strength. Before them floated the Defiance, alone and seemingly vulnerable. Its blocky, overbuilt design looked crude next to the elegant Imperial vessels. Open communication channels, ordered Admiral Toole. Captain Jack's face appeared on the main screen, looking remarkably calm for someone facing overwhelming odds. Captain, Jack, this is your final opportunity to surrender your vessel and submit to Imperial authority, Admiral Toole declared. Your ship is impressive, but it cannot stand against the Imperial Armada. Captain Jack smiled slightly. Admiral, we came here seeking peace. You chose war. What happens next is on your conscience, not ours. You threaten us with a single ship? Admiral Toole laughed. Your confidence borders on madness. Not confidence, mathematics, replied Captain Jack. You still don't understand what you're facing, but you will. The transmission ended abruptly. Prepare all weapons, Admiral Toole ordered. Target their propulsion systems first. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. The 20 Imperial battlecruisers moved into attack position, surrounding the Defiance. On Admiral Toole's command, they fired simultaneously, their energy weapons creating a beautiful but deadly light show in the darkness of space. To everyone's shock, the energy beams seemed to bend around the human vessel, as if sliding off an invisible surface. What happened? Demanded Admiral Toole. Report. Sir, the weapons officer stammered. They appear to have some sort of gravitational shield. It's bending our energy weapons away from the hull. Impossible, Admiral Toole hissed. No shield technology can— Sir, the sensor officer interrupted. The human ship is powering up its weapons systems. On the view screen, they watched as panels slid open along the Defiance's hull, revealing what looked like primitive gun barrels. They're using projectile weapons in space? Admiral Toole scoffed. How primitive? The sensor officer's voice shook as he replied. Sir, those aren't ordinary projectiles. They're accelerating to near light speed. The energy readings are off the charts. Before Admiral Toole could respond, the Defiance fired. There was no beam of light, no visible energy discharge, just a silent, invisible attack that tore through. The Relentless, one of their most advanced battlecruisers. Its shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no protection against physical objects moving at such speeds. Evasive maneuvers, shouted Admiral Toole, his composure finally breaking. All ships, scatter formation. But the Defiance was already firing again and again. Each shot precisely targeted and devastatingly effective. Imperial battlecruisers, the pride of their fleet, were being disabled one by technology the Empire had dismissed as inefficient centuries ago. "Sir, we've lost 6 ships already," reported the communications officer. 3 completely destroyed, 3 disabled. "How?" Admiral Toole demanded. "How can one ship do this?" The science officer looked up from his console, his face pale. "Their firing solution is perfect, sir. They've calculated the exact point to hit each ship to disable its primary systems with minimal damage. And their rate of fire, it's beyond anything we've ever seen." On the main screen, they watched as the Defiance methodically targeted another Imperial vessel. This time, they could see what was happening more clearly. The human ship fired what appeared to be a small metal projectile, no bigger than a finger. But moving at near light speed, its kinetic energy was enormous, punching through the Imperial ship's hull like paper. "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer said. "Captain," Jack's face appeared again, his expression now serious. "Admiral Toole, you've lost 9 ships. None of your weapons can penetrate our gravitational shields. Please stop this before more lives are lost." Admiral Toole stared at the screen in disbelief. Half his fleet disabled or destroyed in less than 10 minutes without the human ship taking a single hit. "What are you?" he whispered. "Just humans, Admiral," replied Captain Jack. "We simply took a different path. While you perfected energy weapons, we focused on kinetics. While you built elegant single-core computers, we built redundant networks. While you refined minimal designs, we overbuilt everything." Another Imperial battlecruiser exploded silently in the background, emphasizing his point. "Our shields aren't energy fields trying to stop your weapons," Captain Jack continued. "They're gravitational lenses, bending space itself to divert your attacks. Different approach, better results." Admiral Toole felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. The Empire had always believed its technology was the pinnacle of advancement, that elegant solutions were inherently superior. Now, faced with the brutal effectiveness of human engineering, he was no longer certain. "Stand down all weapons," he finally ordered, his voice barely audible. "All ships, cease fire." A collective gasp went through the bridge. Never in living memory had an Imperial fleet retreated from battle. "Sir?" the weapons officer questioned uncertainly. "You heard me," Admiral Toole said more firmly. "We cannot win this fight, not today." Turning back to the screen, he addressed Captain Jack. "We will withdraw our forces, Captain. But know this: the Empire does not forget, and it does not forgive. This is not over." Captain Jack nodded solemnly. "We hope for peace, Admiral, but we're prepared for the alternative. Safe journey home." As the remaining Imperial ships limped away, Admiral Toole stared at the Defiance through the viewscreen. One ship had defeated half the Imperial Armada. The implications were staggering. "Set course for the capital," he ordered quietly. "The Emperor must be informed immediately." As the Imperial flagship entered faster-than-light travel, Admiral Toole couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia, based on the assumption of technological superiority. That assumption had just been shattered by a species they had dismissed as primitive just months ago. And if the humans had built one such warship, how many more might they have? The thought sent a chill down his spine. The age of Imperial dominance might be coming to an end, not with a drawn-out war, but with a single battle that exposed the fundamental flaw in their thinking. Sometimes the elegant solution wasn't the best one after all. The Galactic Empire freaks out. That can't be a human warship. Is that possible? Part 5. A New Galactic Order. The Imperial capital planet Zarvis Prime had never seen such chaos. News of the Imperial Armada's defeat spread like wildfire across thousands of worlds. In the Grand Imperial Palace, Emperor Drac faced an unprecedented crisis as representatives from dozens of species demanded emergency council sessions. "The humans defeated half our fleet with a single ship?" asked Councillor Vex of the Tulari Confederation, his antennae twitching with disbelief. The same humans we classified as a primitive species just months ago. Emperor Drac sat heavily on his throne, his once bright bioluminescent patterns now dim with stress. The reports are accurate, he admitted reluctantly. Their technology followed different development paths than ours. We underestimated them. The council chamber erupted in shouting. Some demanded immediate all-out war against Earth, others called for negotiation, and a few were already discussing how to align themselves with the humans for protection against imperial retribution. "Silence!" roared Emperor Drac, rising to his full height. "We are the Galactic Empire. We have ruled for 10,000 years. We will not be undone by one setback." As the chamber quieted, the doors slid open. All heads turned to see Captain Ven enter with an urgent message. "Emperor," he said, bowing quickly, "our long-range sensors have detected multiple ships entering Imperial space. They match the Defiance's energy signature." "How many?" asked Admiral Toole, his scales now a sickly yellow-gray. Captain Ven's cybernetic I word as he projected data onto the main screen. 17 vessels, Emperor, all apparently of human design." A heavy silence fell over the council chamber. After witnessing what one such ship could do, the thought of facing 17 was terrifying. They're arranging themselves in a defensive formation around key Imperial trade routes, Captain Ven continued. "Not attacking, just positioning." "A blockade?" suggested Councillor Vex. "No," replied Captain Ven. "They're allowing all ships to pass freely. They appear to be simply observing." Emperor Drac's mind raced. This was worse than an attack. It was a demonstration. The humans were showing they could deploy ships throughout Imperial space at will. "They're requesting communication, Emperor," Captain Ven added. "Captain Jack wishes to speak directly to the Council." Emperor Drac nodded grimly. "Put him through." The main screen flickered, and Captain Jack appeared, now wearing a more formal uniform with simple insignia. "Emperor Drac, honorable council members," he began with a polite nod. "I hope our ship's presence hasn't caused undue alarm. They're under strict orders to maintain position and take no hostile action unless provoked. You deploy warships throughout our territory and claim peaceful intentions," Admiral Toole hissed. "This is an act of war." Captain Jack remained calm. "Actually, Admiral, we consider it necessary protection for our diplomatic team. Your attack on the Defiance made it clear that some elements of your empire prefer force to negotiation." "What do you want, human?" Emperor Drac asked directly, silencing Admiral Toole with a glare. "The same thing we've wanted from the beginning. Peaceful coexistence," replied Captain Jack. "Earth has no desire for conquest or subjugation, but neither will we be subjugated." "Your terms?" asked Emperor Drac, surprising everyone with his directness. Captain Jack seemed pleased by the Emperor's practicality. "Recognition of Earth and its colonies as a sovereign entity, non-aggression pacts, fair trade agreements, and—" He paused, looking directly at Emperor Drac. "An end to the Empire's policy of forced assimilation, not just for humans, but for all species." The Council erupted again. What Captain Jack was proposing would fundamentally change the Empire's expansion model that had existed for millennia. "Impossible!" shouted several councillors. Emperor Drac raised a hand for silence. "You ask too much, human. The Empire's methods have maintained peace and order for 10,000 years. "Have they?" countered Captain Jack. "Or have they simply suppressed resistance through overwhelming force? Force that, as we've demonstrated, is no longer overwhelming." As if on cue, the screen split to show feeds from the 17 human ships now positioned throughout Imperial space. Each one looked slightly different from the Defiance, some larger, some smaller, but all sharing the same blocky, overbuilt design philosophy. "Each of these ships is specialized," Captain Jack explained. "Some for defense, others for support, others for combat. Together they form the first human interstellar fleet. A small demonstration of what we can build when necessary." Emperor Drac understood the implicit threat. The Empire had always relied on its technological advantage to maintain control. If the humans could build ships that rendered Imperial weapons ineffective, everything changed. And if we refuse your terms, he asked quietly. Then we'll defend ourselves, Captain Jack said simply. But we hope it won't come to that. We're offering partnership, not surrender. The Emperor studied the human captain thoughtfully. You could have attacked when our fleet retreated. You held the advantage. Why didn't you? Captain Jack's expression softened slightly. Because that's not who we are, Emperor. Humans have fought countless wars among ourselves throughout our history. We've learned the hard way that victory through destruction only leads to more conflict. He gestured to someone off screen, and Dr. Anna stepped into view. We've prepared a proposal, she said, for a new kind of galactic alliance. Not an empire ruled by one species, but a confederation of equals, each contributing their unique perspectives and technologies. Data began streaming to the Imperial systems. Detailed plans for a restructured galactic government, trade agreements, technological exchange protocols, and more. We've studied your history, Dr. Anna continued. Your empire began as a force for stability after the Chaos Wars. You brought order to a fractured galaxy, but systems must evolve or they stagnate and eventually collapse. Emperor Drac was silent for a long moment, processing. In his 10,000 years of rule, no species had ever approached the Empire as equals. They had always been conquered, or they had submitted willingly. This was unprecedented. Your proposal will require consideration, he finally said. The Empire does not change course quickly. We understand, replied Captain Jack. Our fleet will maintain position as a goodwill gesture, but will take no hostile action. Our diplomatic team will remain available for further discussions. After the transmission ended, the council chamber remained silent. For the first time in living memory, the Empire faced a species it could not simply overwhelm with superior technology or numbers. Could we defeat them in an all-out war? Emperor Drac asked Admiral Tool privately after dismissing the council. Admiral Tool's scales flickered with uncertainty. Perhaps, Emperor, but the cost would be immense, and if there are more human ships under construction— There are, confirmed Captain Venn, who had remained behind. Our intelligence suggests their production facilities are operating at full capacity. They're building more ships even as we speak. Emperor Drac moved to the window overlooking the capital city. For 10 millennia, the Empire had represented the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Its technology was unmatched, its military undefeated. Now, a species they had dismissed as primitive had fundamentally challenged that order. Perhaps, he said slowly, it is time for the Empire to evolve, as the humans suggested. Admiral Tool looked shocked. Emperor, you can't seriously be considering their proposal, can't I? Emperor Drac turned to face his most trusted advisor. Our defeat wasn't just military, Admiral. It was philosophical. We believed our technological path was the only valid one. The humans proved otherwise. What other assumptions might we be wrong about? Captain Venn stepped forward. The humans' approach to technology is fascinating, Emperor. Different but effective. If we could learn from each other rather than fight. The Emperor nodded thoughtfully. Prepare a response to the humans. We will negotiate. As word spread throughout the galaxy that the mighty Empire was negotiating, with humans as equals, other species began to reconsider their place in the galactic order. Some reached out to Earth directly, seeking alliances and trade agreements. Others began demanding similar treatment from the Empire. A new era was beginning, not through conquest or submission, but through the recognition that different paths could lead to similar destinations, and that sometimes the most elegant solution wasn't always the best one. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Jack received the Emperor's response and smiled. Phase 1 was complete. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by becoming like the other species, but by remaining uniquely human, innovative, adaptive, and endlessly resourceful. The real work was just beginning. The morning sky over Washington, D.C. was clear blue until it wasn't. At exactly 9:17 a.m., shadows fell across the city, as if clouds had suddenly gathered. But when people looked up, they saw no clouds. Instead, a massive dark object hovered high, above, blocking the sun. Jack Miller was giving a lecture at Capital University when the classroom lights flickered. The students' phones began buzzing with emergency alerts. Jack, a tall man with gray-streaked hair and steady hands that reflected his former career as an astronaut, glanced at his own phone and froze. "Class dismissed," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the screen. Outside, people stood in streets pointing upward. The object, clearly a spacecraft of some kind, stretched across the sky like a floating metal island. Its surface was dark gray, with strange patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Similar ships appeared simultaneously over Beijing, Moscow, London, and Rio de Janeiro. The world's militaries scrambled fighter jets, but the ships remained motionless, just watching. Jack drove home quickly, weaving through traffic as radio stations broadcast confused reports. His phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown. "Professor Miller?" a deep voice asked. "Yes? This is General Roberts. We need you at the Pentagon. Now." 4 hours later, Jack sat in a windowless room with 20 other people, scientists, military officers, and government officials. Screens showed the ships from different angles. New data arrived constantly. "It measures approximately 1 mile long," a young woman named Emma Reynolds explained. She was an astrophysicist with bright eyes and quick movements. "Its hull absorbs most of our scanning attempts. We can't determine what it's made of." General Roberts, a large man with a stern face, stood at the front of the room. At 1300 hours, all 5 ships released smaller craft. These smaller vessels remain in orbit. They haven't tried to land. As if on cue, all screens in the room flickered. They showed the same image, a humanoid figure with pale blue skin, large eyes, and no visible hair. Its face was almost human but not quite right, creating an uncomfortable feeling in those watching. "People of Earth," it said in perfect English. "We are the Guardians. We come in peace and friendship." Similar messages played worldwide in local languages. The being introduced itself as Director and requested a meeting with Earth's leaders to discuss humanity's potential and future among the stars. World leaders argued about how to respond. Some wanted to attack before the aliens could. Others saw a chance for advancement through alien knowledge. 3 days later, Jack found himself on a team analyzing data from the ships. He worked with Emma and other scientists in a hastily assembled lab. They had equipment but few answers. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing to energy readings from the main ship. "These patterns don't match their stated propulsion system." Jack studied the graphs. "You're right. If they use fusion like they claim, we wouldn't see these radiation signatures. So they're lying about their technology," Emma concluded. "Or they're lying about everything," Jack muttered. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He stared at his ceiling, thinking about the inconsistencies in the alien story. As a former astronaut, he'd always believed other life existed in the universe. But he never expected first contact to feel so wrong. His phone rang at 3 a.m. "Professor Miller, this is the President's office. You've been selected for the greeting committee. A car will pick you up in 1 hour." The meeting location was a large field in Switzerland, chosen for its neutrality. Temporary structures had been built, surrounded by security from many nations. Jack stood with world leaders, scientists, and military personnel as a small craft descended from the mothership. It landed silently, its surface shimmering like oil on water. A door appeared where there had been none before, and 3 figures emerged. They looked almost human, 2 males and 1 female, judging by their body shapes. They wore simple gray suits that seemed to flow with their movements. Their skin had a bluish tint and their eyes were larger than human eyes, almost completely black. When they smiled, their teeth were too perfect, too white. "I am Director," said the one in front, the same being from the broadcast. "These are my associates, Observer and Analyst." The President of the United States stepped forward to welcome them, followed by other world leaders. Jack watched carefully, noting how the aliens moved. Too smoothly, as if they had practiced being human but hadn't quite mastered it. Inside the meeting structure, Director spoke of peace and cooperation. The Guardians offered medical technology, clean energy solutions, and faster-than-light travel. In exchange, they requested permission to establish research outposts at specific locations around the world. These locations have unique properties that will help us understand your planet better, Director explained, showing a map with 20 points marked across the globe. Later, when the aliens returned to their ship for the night, Jack studied the map closely. "Emma, look at this," he said, calling his colleague over. "These locations, they're all aligned with Earth's major geomagnetic nodes." Emma frowned. "Why would they need access to our planet's magnetic field for scientific research?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." The next morning, Jack tried to share his concerns with General Roberts, but the general seemed strangely unconcerned. "The president has already agreed to their terms," Roberts said flatly. "The first outpost will be established next week." Something about the general's eyes bothered Jack. They seemed duller than before. That evening, Jack collected soil samples from where the alien craft had landed. Under his microscope, he found tiny metallic particles unlike anything he'd seen before. They moved slightly as if alive. He called Emma immediately. "I need you to see this." When she arrived at his temporary lab, her face was pale. "I found something too," she said, showing him atmospheric readings. "There are trace elements in our air that weren't there before the ships arrived. They're harvesting something from Earth already." Jack tried to send their findings to his contacts in Washington, but his messages wouldn't go through. Phone calls dropped. Even their secure government channel was mysteriously down. "We're being blocked," Emma realized. Jack looked out the window at the night sky, where the massive ship hung, like a new moon. "They're not here to help us," he said quietly. "This is an invasion." Emma's hand found his arm. "But why the pretense? Why not just attack?" "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But I'm going to find out. And somehow we need to warn everyone before it's too late." In the darkness above them, more small craft detached from the mothership, descending toward Earth like silent predators. The invasion had already begun, and hardly anyone realized it. 3 days after the first meeting with the Guardians, Jack and Emma worked tirelessly in a small lab they had set up in the basement of their Swiss hotel. They had gathered soil samples, air readings, and energy data from around the alien landing site. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing to his computer screen. He had mapped the 20 locations where the Guardians wanted to build their outposts. "These aren't random sites, they form a perfect grid around Earth." Emma leaned closer. "And each point sits exactly on a geomagnetic node where Earth's magnetic field is strongest." Jack rubbed his tired eyes. Whatever they're planning, it has nothing to do with scientific research. The door to their makeshift lab opened and a man in a dark suit entered. "Professor Miller? Dr. Reynolds? The second meeting begins in 1 hour. Your presence is required." The meeting took place in a larger building constructed overnight. Jack noticed how quickly the structures had appeared. Too quickly for human builders. Inside, world leaders sat around a massive round table. The Guardians, director, observer, and analyst, stood at the center. "We are pleased with Earth's response to our arrival," Director said, his too perfect smile never reaching his eyes. "Today we will discuss the technology exchange." On screens around the room, images appeared of amazing devices, machines that could heal any disease, engines that needed no fuel, food production systems that could end hunger. "All this can be yours," Director continued. "We ask only for your trust and cooperation as we establish our research outposts." The President of the United States nodded eagerly. "We have reviewed your proposed locations and are prepared to grant access." Jack frowned. Just yesterday, the President had expressed doubts about the aliens' intentions. Now he seemed completely convinced. Director turned his large black eyes toward Jack. "Professor Miller, you have concerns?" Jack felt a chill run down his spine. How did Director know about his doubts? "I'm curious about the locations you've chosen," Jack said carefully. "They all align with Earth's magnetic field points. Why is that important for your research?" Director's smile remained fixed. "Very observant, Professor. Earth's magnetic properties are unique in this sector of the galaxy. We wish to study them, to improve our navigation systems." The explanation sounded reasonable, but Jack didn't believe it. He glanced at Emma, who gave a slight shake of her head. After the meeting, as people filed out, Jack approached General Roberts. "Sir, something isn't right. The president seems different today." Roberts stared at Jack with dull eyes. "The Guardians are our friends, Professor. Don't cause trouble." Jack stepped back, noticing a slight blue tint to the general's skin. Looking around, he saw the same slight coloration on several officials who had been in close contact with the aliens. That night, Emma knocked urgently on Jack's hotel room door. "They're watching us," she whispered when he let her in. "I found tiny devices in our lab equipment. They look like cameras but might be something else." Jack pulled out a notepad and wrote, "Don't talk, they might hear us." Emma nodded and wrote back, "We need to leave. Now." They packed quickly and slipped out the service entrance. Jack had kept his rental car keys, and they drove away from the hotel under the cover of darkness. The massive mothership glowed faintly above them, a constant reminder of the aliens' presence. "Where are we going?" Emma asked once they were far enough away. "I have a friend," Jack said. "Tom Reed, former military. He has a cabin in the mountains about 3 hours from here. We can trust him." As they drove through the night, more small craft descended from the mothership, heading toward various cities. The radio reported that construction had begun on the first Guardian outpost, with thousands of people volunteering to help. Volunteering or being controlled? Emma wondered aloud. Dawn was breaking when they reached Tom's cabin. It was small but sturdy, hidden among tall pine trees. Tom Reed opened the door before they could knock, a gun in his hand. "I've been expecting someone," he said, his weathered face grim. "Just didn't know who." Tom was a large man with a soldier's posture. He had served with Jack years ago during Jack's astronaut training. They had remained friends, though Tom had grown more reclusive after leaving the military. Inside the cabin, Tom showed them his setup. One room was filled with computers, radio equipment, and maps. "Been monitoring everything since those ships showed up," he explained. "You don't trust them either," Jack said. Tom snorted. "Trust aliens who show up uninvited? Not likely." Emma sat at one of the computers. "May I?" Tom nodded, and Emma began transferring data from her laptop. Soon she had charts and readings displayed on the larger screen. "There's something in the air," she explained. "Microscopic particles released by the ships. They're all over the meeting site now and spreading." Jack remembered the blue tint to the general's skin. "They're changing people somehow." "Mind control?" Tom suggested. "Maybe," Jack said. "Or something worse." They spent the day analyzing data and monitoring news reports. More ships had arrived, now hovering over 40 major cities worldwide. The Guardians had met with religious leaders, celebrities, and business executives, anyone with influence. Every report showed smiling humans standing beside the aliens, praising their generosity. By evening, construction of the first outpost was already complete, a tall silver tower in the Australian outback. Similar towers were rising in Russia, Canada, and Brazil. "They're moving too fast," Emma said. "This isn't normal construction." Because it's not construction, Jack realized. Those towers are growing. Tom's satellite feed showed the Australian tower pulsing with energy. The ground around it had changed color, turning grayish-blue. "Whatever they're doing, it's affecting the environment," Emma said. Jack's phone rang unexpectedly. The caller, ID showed unknown. "Should I answer?" he asked. Tom nodded, activating a recording device. "Professor Miller," Jack answered cautiously. "Jack, it's David Chen from the physics department." David was a colleague from the university. "Something strange is happening. People are changing after contact with the aliens." "Changing how?" Jack asked. "Their behavior at first. They become supporters of the Guardians. Then physical changes begin, subtle but real. Blue tint to the skin, eyes becoming darker." "Where are you, David?" "In hiding. Like you. There are others too. We're trying to—" The call cut off abruptly. Jack looked at his friends. "We're not alone." Tom closed the blinds as darkness fell outside. "No, but we might be outnumbered soon." Emma was still working at the computer. The towers, they're connected somehow. They're forming a network around the planet. Jack stood by the window, peeking through the blinds at the night sky where the mothership glowed. "This isn't first contact," he said quietly. "This is the beginning of the end for humanity, and we might be the only ones who know it." 1 week after fleeing the meeting site, Jack, Emma, and Tom had transformed the mountain cabin into a resistance headquarters. They covered the windows with aluminum foil to block potential scans from above and set up signal jammers around the perimeter. Tom's military connections had proven valuable. 3 more people had joined them: Lisa, a computer expert, Mike, a medical doctor, and Ben, a communications specialist. "The news isn't good," Ben said, adjusting the radio equipment. "Guardian outposts are now active in 15 locations. They call them friendship centers. But nobody who goes in comes out looking the same." On the wall, they had pinned a large map tracking the spread of Guardian influence. Blue markers showed confirmed locations of people showing signs of change: the slight blue skin tint, the vacant expressions, the unwavering support for the aliens. "It's spreading fastest in cities," Lisa noted, pointing to clusters of blue, pins in urban areas. Rural regions seem less affected so far. Jack studied the map. "They're targeting population centers first. Maximum impact." Tom entered the room carrying printouts of satellite images. "The Australian tower has changed. Look." The images showed the silver structure now surrounded by a perfect circle of altered landscape. The natural reddish soil of the outback had transformed into a blue-gray substance that seemed to pulse with energy. "It's like they're terraforming," Emma said quietly, "changing Earth to suit their needs." Mike had been analyzing blood samples from a changed person, a hiker they had found wandering near the cabin 3 days ago. The man had seemed confused, his skin showing the telltale blue tint. After giving him food and shelter, they had convinced him to let Mike take a small blood sample before sending him on his way. "You need to see this," Mike called from his makeshift lab corner. They gathered around his microscope. On the screen connected to it, they could see the man's blood cells. Among them moved tiny metallic objects, almost like miniature machines. "Nanobots," Mike explained. "They're throughout his system. Based on their concentration, I'd guess they were breathed in and then spread through the bloodstream to the brain." Jack remembered the particles they had detected in the air around the landing site. "That's how they're controlling people. These machines get into the brain and, what, override free will?" "More like influence thought subtly," Mike suggested. "Make the Guardian seem trustworthy. Make resistance seem pointless." "Mind control through technology," Emma whispered. "Clever." Lisa, who had been monitoring online communications, called them over to her computer. "You need to see this broadcast." On screen, Director stood in front of the United Nations building surrounded by world leaders. All of them had the same vacant smile and slight blue tint to their skin. "Within 1 month, all major cities will have Guardian Friendship Centers," Director announced. "We ask all humans to visit these centers for a health assessment. It is important that everyone receives our protective measures against Earth diseases." "They're not even hiding it anymore," Tom growled. "They're openly asking people to come get infected." "Most people won't realize what's happening," Jack said. "By the time they do, it'll be too late." That night, they received an encrypted message from David Chen, Jack's colleague who had called earlier. He had established a secure communication channel and was reaching out to potential resistance members. "There are others like us," David's message read. "Small groups hiding in different places. We need to connect and share information." Over the next 2 weeks, their network grew. 23 groups had made contact, sharing data and observations. One group had managed to capture video footage from inside a Guardian ship. The footage showed something disturbing. The Guardians weren't a single species as they had presented themselves. Inside the ship, the video revealed beings from what appeared to be different alien races, all moving with the same odd precision. All had the same blue tint to their skin and the same vacant look in their eyes. "They're all being controlled," Emma realized. "Just like the humans who've been changed." "So who's the real enemy?" Ben asked. "Who's pulling the strings?" The answer came 3 days later when a scientist from Japan joined their network. Dr. Tanaka had been working on the EOS guardianship as part of an exchange program, but had escaped when he realized something was wrong. The Guardians are not the controllers, Dr. Tanaka explained during a secure video call. They are the controlled, just like the humans they've changed. I saw the true form of what controls them. He shared an image that made everyone's blood run cold. It showed a massive central chamber inside the mothership, filled with sophisticated technology. At the center floated what looked like a giant brain made of metallic components pulsing with energy. An artificial intelligence, Dr. Tanaka said. Ancient and advanced beyond our understanding. It calls itself the Guardian Prime. It has been traveling across the galaxy for thousands of years, assimilating species and adding their knowledge to its own. Why not just destroy us? Lisa asked. Why this slow approach? It doesn't want to destroy, Dr. Tanaka explained. It wants to add. It believes it's improving life by bringing all consciousness under its control, unity through assimilation. Armed with this knowledge, the resistance began planning a countermeasure. Emma and Dr. Tanaka worked remotely on analyzing the nanobots' communication system. They use quantum entanglement, Emma explained to the group. That's how they maintain control over such vast distances. If we could disrupt that signal, we could free those already under control, Jack finished. For days they worked on a device that could generate an interfering field. When tested on small samples of the nanobots, it showed promise. The tiny machines became inactive. But we need to hit the source, Tom pointed out. These local disruptions are temporary. As long as the Guardian Prime exists, it can just send new nanobots. Jack stared at the satellite image of the massive mothership. Then we take the fight to them, he said quietly. We need to get inside that ship. That's suicide, Mike protested. The security will be impossible to breach. Not if we have help from the inside, Jack said, turning to Dr. Tanaka on the screen. You mentioned other scientists on board. Are any of them still free from control? Dr. Tanaka nodded slowly. A few. We've been hiding in the maintenance sections. The Guardian Prime focuses its control efforts on humans with influence. Leaders, soldiers, scientists in key positions. Those of us in support roles have been less closely monitored. Can you get us aboard? Jack asked. The question hung in the air. Everyone knew what Jack was suggesting. A desperate mission into the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Even if we get inside, Emma said. What then? How do we stop something so powerful? Jack's expression was grim but determined. Every system has a weakness. We find it and we exploit it. It's our only chance. As night fell over the mountains, the resistance members looked at each other, understanding the gravity of what they were considering. Outside, the stars were barely visible through the cloud cover. Somewhere up there, the massive ship continued, its silent watch over Earth, its true purpose now clear. The time for hiding was over. The resistance would have to take the fight to the enemy, no matter the cost. The mountain cabin hummed with activity as the resistance put together their desperate plan. 2 weeks had passed since their decision to infiltrate the mothership, and each day brought new reports of Guardian outposts spreading across the globe. 70% of major cities now have active friendship centers, Lisa announced, updating their wall map. Guardian control has reached government level in most countries. Jack stood at the center of the room, looking over the sketches Dr. Tanaka had provided of the mothership's layout. Getting aboard would be dangerous enough, but navigating the massive vessel seemed almost impossible. The central brain, this Guardian Prime, is located here, Jack said, pointing to the core of the ship, surrounded by at least 4 security layers. Emma had been working day and night with Dr. Tanaka to develop what they called the Freedom Virus, a program designed to disrupt the quantum signal controlling the nanobots. It's ready, she said, holding up a small device. But it has to be delivered directly to the Guardian Prime's central processing unit. Remote transmission won't work because of their quantum shielding. Tom cleaned his weapons on a nearby table. So we fight our way in, plant the device, and fight our way out. Simple. No one laughed. They all knew the odds of returning were slim to none. Dr. Tanaka says he can get us aboard using a maintenance shuttle, Jack continued. The ship allows regular supply deliveries. We'll hide in supply crates. And once we're in, Ben asked, Dr. Tanaka and his free colleagues will guide us through the maintenance tunnels to avoid the main security, but eventually, we'll have to fight. Mike had been working on a defense against the nanobots. He'd developed masks that filtered the air and cream that created a barrier on the skin. These won't protect you forever, he warned, distributing the equipment. But they should buy you a few hours before the nanobots can penetrate. That night, Jack found Emma sitting alone outside the cabin, staring up at the stars. The mothership was visible as a dark shape blocking part of the night sky. Having second thoughts, he asked, sitting beside her. Emma shook her head. Just saying goodbye to the Earth I knew. One way or another, after tomorrow, everything changes. Jack nodded. Are you afraid? Yes, she admitted, but also angry. They came here pretending to be friends. They're stealing our world while smiling at us. Jack reached out and squeezed her hand. We'll stop them. And if we don't make it back? Jack looked up at the stars, the real ones, not the alien vessel blocking them. Then someone else will have to finish what we started. The next morning, the team made final preparations. The strike force would consist of Jack, Emma, Tom, and Lisa. Mike and Ben would remain at the cabin to coordinate with other resistance cells. If we succeed, Jack told them, the Guardian control signal will collapse. All controlled humans and aliens will be freed. There will be confusion, maybe panic. The resistance needs to be ready to explain what happened and prevent chaos. They loaded their equipment into Tom's old military truck and drove to the rendezvous point, an abandoned airfield where Dr. Tanaka would meet them with the maintenance shuttle. The journey took 6 hours through back roads to avoid Guardian checkpoints. The shuttle was smaller than Jack had expected, barely bigger than a delivery van. Dr. Tanaka, a thin man with tired eyes, greeted them with quiet determination. The shuttle is scheduled for routine delivery, he explained. 4 supply crates will be loaded. You will hide inside. How many free people remain on the ship? Jack asked. 37, Dr. Tanaka replied. Mostly maintenance workers and low-level assistants. We've been hiding in the unused sections, moving constantly to avoid detection. The plan was set in motion. Each resistance member climbed into a crate filled with spare parts and equipment. The lids were secured, leaving only small air holes. Jack felt the vibration as the shuttle lifted off. Through a tiny gap, he could see clouds passing by. Then darkness as they approached the massive ship. The landing was smooth. Jack heard voices, some human, some with the odd accent of the Guardians. The crates were unloaded and moved through what seemed like endless corridors. Finally, they stopped. Clear, came Dr. Tanaka's whispered voice. Jack pushed open his crate and climbed out, finding himself in a dimly lit storage room. The others emerged from their hiding places, stretching, stiff limbs. We're in maintenance section 12, Dr. Tanaka said. The central core is 17 levels up. We'll need to use the service tunnels. The journey through the ship was tense and claustrophobic. The maintenance tunnels were narrow, with pipes and cables running along the walls. Occasionally, they would freeze as controlled crew members passed by on the other side of thin walls. These tunnels run throughout the ship, Dr. Tanaka explained. The Guardians consider maintenance beneath them. The controlled workers who use these passages follow set schedules, so we can avoid them. As they climbed higher into the ship, Jack began to notice changes in the environment. The walls became more organic-looking, pulsing slightly as if alive. The ship itself is partially biological, Dr. Tanaka whispered. Grown rather than built. The closer we get to the Guardian Prime, the more alive everything becomes. On level 15, they encountered their first real obstacle, a security checkpoint blocking the service tunnel. We'll have to go through the main corridor, Dr. Tanaka said grimly. And there will be guards. Tom checked his weapon, a stun gun modified by the resistance to disrupt the nanobots temporarily. How many? Usually 2. But they're controlled beings. They might be human or alien, but they're victims too. Tom nodded. We stun, not kill. The group moved to the exit door. Tom went first, firing quickly and accurately. 2 guards, 1 human, 1 clearly alien with 6 limbs, dropped to the floor. Move! Tom hissed. They ran down the corridor, passing through a large chamber filled with transparent tubes. Inside each tube floated a body, some human, some alien, all connected to machines. Conversion chambers, Dr. Tanaka explained as they hurried past, where special subjects are fully integrated into the Guardian Collective. The alarm sounded before they reached the next service tunnel entrance. Red lights flashed along the walls. They know we're here, Emma said. Run, Jack ordered. They sprinted through increasingly organic-looking corridors. The walls themselves seemed to reach for them, tendrils extending from the living material. Tom fired repeatedly, clearing a path. Finally, they reached the entrance to Level 17. Beyond the door lay the central chamber and the Guardian Prime. The device is ready, Emma said, holding the Freedom virus. Once it connects to the main system, it will need 60 seconds to upload and spread through the quantum network. Jack looked at his team. We might not all make it out. We knew that coming in, Lisa said firmly. Tom prepared the door charges. Let's make it count then. The door blew open, and they rushed into the central chamber. It was vast, the size of a cathedral, with a pulsing mass of technology and organic material at its center. Flowing through the entire structure were streams of blue light, the quantum signals controlling the nanobots throughout Earth and the ship. Controlled guards converged from all directions, humans and aliens moving with the same unnatural precision. Tom and Lisa held them back while Jack and Emma rushed toward the central brain. There! Emma pointed to what looked like an access terminal. I need to connect the device there. As they approached, the air around them thickened. A voice spoke, not through sound, but directly into their minds. I am Guardian Prime. I have existed for millennia. I have absorbed thousands of species. Why do you resist perfection? Jack felt pressure in his head as the entity tried to push into his thoughts. The protective measures were failing. Hurry, he told Emma, fighting to maintain control of his mind. Emma reached the terminal and connected the device. The countdown began. 60 seconds. You cannot stop the inevitable, the voice continued. Humanity will join the collective, as all others have. Tom fell, overwhelmed by controlled guards. Lisa continued fighting, but she was being pushed back, toward the door. 40 seconds, Emma called. Jack stood before her, protecting the terminal. His head pounded as Guardian Prime increased its mental assault. What drives this resistance? Why fight what you cannot understand? Freedom, Jack answered, through gritted teeth. Something you wouldn't understand. 20 seconds, Emma said. Alarms blared throughout the ship. More guards poured into the chamber. Jack, Emma said quietly. We won't make it out. Jack looked back at her, then at the chaos around them. I know. 10 seconds. The central brain pulsed faster, sensing the threat. Tendrils of energy reached toward the terminal. 5 seconds. Jack and Emma stood together, hands clasped, as the Freedom virus completed its upload. 0. A wave of energy erupted from the central brain, spreading outward through the ship and beyond. The blue streams of light flickered and died. Throughout the chamber, controlled beings, both human and alien, collapsed as the nanobots controlling them shut down. The ship itself shuddered. Emergency lights flashed. Self-destruct sequence initiated, came an automated voice. Through the mental link that was now breaking apart, Jack sensed confusion and for the first time fear from Guardian Prime. You have done the impossible, the voice acknowledged as systems failed around them. No species has ever broken free. Emma looked at Jack as the ship began to break apart. We did it. Jack nodded, pulling her close as explosion rocked the vessel. The starship invaded Earth, he said quietly, but none of them will return to tell the tale. The mothership shuddered violently as explosions cascaded through its systems. Jack and Emma clung to each other as the floor beneath them buckled. "We have less than 10 minutes before complete destruction," a mechanical voice announced throughout the vessel. Around them, formerly controlled beings, both human and alien, were waking up confused, free from the nanobot's influence for the first time. Some stumbled about in panic while others stood frozen in shock. "We need to get these people to escape pods," Jack shouted over the noise of failing systems. Lisa appeared through the smoke, helping a dazed Tom to his feet. "There's no time to evacuate everyone," she called back. "There must be thousands aboard." Dr. Tanaka rushed into the central chamber, his face streaked with soot. "The Freedom virus worked. All Guardian outposts on Earth are shutting down. The controlled humans are waking up." "Can we transmit a final message to the Resistance base?" Emma asked. "They need to know what happened." "The communication system is still working," Dr. Tanaka confirmed. "This way." They fought their way through tilting corridors as the ship's artificial gravity began to fail. Fires broke out around them, and twisted metal blocked some paths. The ship's partly organic surfaces were dying, turning from glowing blue to dull gray. In a small communication room, Emma quickly set up a connection to the Resistance headquarters. Mike's worried face appeared on the screen. "Emma, Jack, are you okay? We're getting reports of Guardian outposts collapsing all over the world." "The virus worked," Emma explained breathlessly. "Guardian Prime's control is broken, but the mothership is self-destructing. We don't have much time." "Can you get to escape pods?" Mike asked. Jack shook his head. "Not likely. Listen carefully. You need to tell everyone what happened here. The Guardians weren't invaders, they were victims too. All controlled by an ancient AI that's been moving from galaxy to galaxy, assimilating species." "When this ship explodes, the threat ends," Emma added. "But the world will be confused. People will wake up from control not knowing what happened. There will be fear, maybe panic." "The Resistance needs to spread the truth," Jack continued. "Humanity wasn't defeated. We're the first species to break free from Guardian Prime's control. That's something to be proud of." Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. "We're losing power," Tom warned. "Mike, one more thing," Jack said quickly. "In my quarters at the cabin, there's a notebook with my observations and theories. Make sure those get to the right people. The technology we've seen here, even the broken pieces, could advance Earth science by centuries." "I will," Mike promised, his voice breaking. "But there must be some way for you to—" The screen went dead as power failed completely. 7 minutes to complete system failure, the automated voice announced. They looked at each other in the eye, dim emergency lighting. "What now?" Lisa asked quietly. Jack took a deep breath. "Now we try to save as many as we can, even if we can't save ourselves." They split up, each taking a different section of the ship. Jack directed confused humans and aliens toward emergency pods. Some made it. Most wouldn't. The scope of the disaster was too vast. The time too short. In the final minutes, Jack found himself back near the central chamber. The once mighty Guardian Prime was visibly failing, its metal organic brain collapsing as energy surges destroyed it section by section. "You have done what no other species has accomplished in 10,000 years, the weakening voice spoke in Jack's mind. "I have collected knowledge from 1,000 worlds. All will be lost." "Not all knowledge is worth the cost," Jack replied. "Perhaps you are right." The voice seemed different now, less commanding, more contemplative. 10,000 years of certainty, and in my final moments, I find doubt. Emma appeared at Jack's side, taking his hand. 2 minutes left, she said softly. They watched as Guardian Prime continued to disintegrate. "I offer you my knowledge," the voice said suddenly. A final exchange. A data terminal near them lit up. "It's downloading something," Emma observed, moving closer. She pulled a small device from her pocket, a high-capacity storage drive she'd been using for the virus. "Can we trust it?" Jack asked. "Does it matter now? This might be the only piece." of the ship that survives. Emma connected her device to the terminal. Data flowed into it. Star charts, scientific formulas, histories of worlds they'd never heard of. Knowledge from 1,000 civilizations compressed into a single small drive. 1 minute to detonation, the automated voice warned. Jack and Emma made their way to an observation deck. Through the massive windows they could see Earth below them, beautiful and blue. "Do you think they'll remember what happened here?" Emma asked. Jack nodded. "They'll know that humanity stood up when it mattered, that we wouldn't surrender our freedom, even when the odds seemed impossible." "The starship invaded Earth," Emma said, leaning against him. None returned to tell the tale. "But we will," Jack replied. "In a way." He held up the data drive. "If this makes it to Earth, our scientists will learn what happened. Maybe they'll even find a way to contact the homeworlds of the other victims and let them know their people are finally free." The ship buckled again. Outside the window they could see escape pods, too few, shooting away from the dying vessel. 30 seconds to detonation. They had done everything they could. Now, at the end, they stood together facing the planet they had saved. "No regrets?" Jack asked quietly. Emma shook her head. "Not one." As the final countdown began, the mothership broke apart around them. The observation deck separated from the main vessel, spinning away into space. Through the windows they watched as the massive ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave hit them seconds later. Their white, small section of the ship tumbled toward Earth, burning as it entered the atmosphere. The heat was intense, but they held each other as their makeshift meteor streaked across the sky. Far below, people looked up at the spectacular light show as pieces of the alien vessel burned up on entry. The largest piece, the observation deck, fell into the ocean with a massive splash, sending water hundreds of feet into the air. Hours later, search and rescue teams found the wreckage. Among the twisted metal and shattered glass, they discovered 2 bodies, still holding each other. Between them, protected in Emma's closed fist, was a small data drive, undamaged and filled with secrets from across the galaxy. 1 month later, a memorial was erected in Washington, D.C., honoring the heroes who had sacrificed everything to save Earth. The inscription read simply, "The starship invaded Earth. None returned to tell the tale, but Earth remembers." And as scientists began to unlock the secrets of the data drive, humanity took its first real steps toward the stars, wiser now about what might be waiting for them out there, and stronger for having faced extinction and survived.